Hi, I'm Margie Holmes, psychologist, author, and educator. We encounter many people in our lives, and we all have different issues and quirks. Some people we enjoy, gladly tolerate, and yet others make us want to tear our hair out. Some situations we dismiss as mere paarte or drama king queen behavior, when actually they can be symptoms of a more serious condition like bipolar disorder. And that is what we will be discussing today. First, let's get an official definition of bipolar disorder, and this one is from the U.S. National Institute of Mental Health, or NIMH. Now, this is their definition. Bipolar disorder, also known as manic depressive illness or manic depression, is a brain disorder. It causes unusual shifts in mood, energy, activity levels, and the ability to carry out day-to-day tasks. The NIMH continues, the symptoms are different from the ordinary ups and downs. Bipolar disorder symptoms can result in damaged relationships, poor job or school performance, and even suicide. But it can be treated, and people with this illness can lead full and productive lives. Now, let's ask our Facebook friends what bipolar disorder is to them and what their most common symptoms are. Desiree Season, it's a hard disease that only the toughest can endure. A doctor friend whose mother is bipolar told me that bipolar disorder patients already have a place in heaven because of the hardships they experience here on earth. But then I told her, but tita, I need heaven now. Desiree continues, it's difficult to define and explain it to others. They think you're just blowing things out of proportion, that being with friends will ease your depression. For my family, bipolar disorder is when I'm already in a psychotic breakdown. Angel Perez, when I was in high school, I could do all-nighters and get really good grades. And then in the next test, I just flunked because of my brain, which drops dead. It's a weird brain that goes on and off like a dying light bulb. I experienced trembling too. I don't like loud noises. I ran after a car when it honked at me while I was crossing the street. I also kicked a taxi. When I'm really sad, I often wish I'd get hit by a car. Rafael Navarro, my doctor suspects I have bipolar disorder since I told him I was having painful depressive episodes that last for more than 2 weeks. But sometimes there were days when I become euphoric and too fidgety. Make Racing, I don't get mad, I get enraged. And I've been in a couple of fights with strangers whose only fault are that they annoy me. Contemplating about dying and trying to kill myself, and I've actually survived one suicidal episode or hurting someone whilst I seldom felt remorse, doing all these things and actually even hurting someone. Diana Saison says, I hyper-angrily kicked a cab door for being an ugly caller, getting the cabbie crazy mad as well, since we just exchanged jokes a few seconds before. Thank you, Make. Thank you, Diana, because you have highlighted that rages are a common feature of bipolar disorder when people are manic. Because others usually forget this because most of the textbooks usually define manic disorder as exuberance, as racing thoughts, etc. But actually one feature that hurts people who love them is that when people are manic, they can get extremely rageful, say terribly hurting things, become verbally abusive, that they may forget when they're euthymic or in a normal mood. But unfortunately, the people who have heard these things, the people who are targeted when the person is manic, for them, it's hard to forget, and it really, really hurts. Angel Perez says, there's rapid shifting of moods. During depressive state, one may be suicidal, lethargic, may sleep all day, may be irritable and angry. And yet during high states, one becomes extremely happy. Even the smallest of reasons to be happy is enough to make one exuberant. There is little need for sleep. One can think so fast and become so creative. Some goals made at this state may just turn out to be grandiose illusions, I didn't know how to pronounce it, you see, that are impossible to achieve. Angel Perez, may I also include sexual promiscuity in the manic phase? Yes, you can, Ishel, because as we know, people who know bipolar disorder people or people who are bipolar themselves, sexual promiscuity is one of the most common symptoms of being manic depressive. Now, you know, I think one of the features of manic depression, especially when one is manic rather than depressed, is that the person who is manic depressive and is manic does a lot of things which seem to be a lot of fun at the time. For example, spending lots of money, telling people off in the most embarrassing and loudest manner, having sex with lots of people. Well, okay, I think I'm biased. You know, these things can actually be fun, not only seem like fun. But the thing is, the difference between an ordinary person, a non-bipolar person who has this kind of fun, and the manic person is that the manic person will have repercussions of this behavior that tend to harm the bipolar one. You know, usually when you're up and down, you know, you may do something that is, you know, a little kooky, maybe even a little too adventurous. You don't suffer the repercussions that bipolar disorder people feel. You know, it can damage your reputation. Usually, it can damage the relationships, which is why people with bipolar disorder usually have multiple marriages. It can damage your school performance, as was said earlier, which is why a lot of bipolar disorder people, even if they are brilliant, which many are, don't finish college, don't even finish high school when they have brains that can enable them to take 2 or 3 PhDs. And because they don't mean to hurt other people, in that sense, you can feel that bipolar disorder, even if it seems selfish, is not necessarily selfish, because the people that are hurt are the people themselves who have this illness. I think, well, maybe you can call the bipolar person selfish if he knows he's bipolar, knows he can he can be helped by medication, and yet refuses to take the medication at all. Ang gulo, ano? And I'm sorry, it's because there are so many things to say about bipolar disorder. Tuloy, nagmumukha akong manic ngayon. And anyway, there are so many things to say, but I don't want to bludgeon you with so much stuff in just one episode of Ask Margie. Well, that's it for today. How did you feel about our attempts to define bipolar disorder? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Have you any suggestions on how we can make bipolar disorder easier to understand, perhaps even easier to accept? Tell us what you think and feel in the comment section below. Please send me your questions on Facebook, tweet using the hashtag AskMargie, or send an email to askmargie@rappler.com. See you next week.